This is our first one of the new year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It is. And I don't know if you've seen the recent Monday versions of the art check, but
Oh, I haven't been watching, and I should, but
no, you don't have to.
I've been glued to the like you said. I've been glued to the TV,
Yeah, no, I've
unfortunately.
been, yeah, just the doom scrolling the news.
More so than is probably healthy,
Right.
to be honest. But
Well, and I can't even imagine, like you're located right there.
we're
I'm
right
so,
we're right here, and
yeah,
we're in the suburbs though. We're not in DC,
yeah,
but you hear helicopters over our heads, and you hear and our the place we lived in before was even closer. We could see the Washington Monument, and we were just down the street from the Pentagon, where we lived before. Now we
yeah,
live in Rockville, which is, but NIH is just down the street, and uh, yeah, and I've lived in the Washington D.C. area my whole life,
yeah,
and I've been afraid other times, but not like this. Not
yeah,
like this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's nuts. So anyway, I mean, we can probably get to that during challenges,
Mhm.
but yeah, I was just saying, you know, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm a couple thousand miles removed, and it's still nuts. And I'm not hearing helicopters. Yeah, I'm definitely consuming more than I thought to. I keep saying that I'm gonna
Mm.
turn stuff off for a few days, and but then just more and more keep happening. It's I don't know. It's hard to look away.
Mhm.
So um, yeah. So let's. Well, anyway, I was saying. I don't know if you've seen the last couple art checks. You said you hadn't, but the
No, and I want to. I should go back and look.
yeah, and it's okay if you don't. But we're kind of discussing things changing.
Mhm.
You've been with the show for a few months. This is episode 276, and I don't know. Josh and I were like, Do you feel like we should change things up? Like we should kind of. So something will happen where we'll kind of change things. I'm not sure exactly what that is, and you and I can continue to have kind of ongoing conversations about how we want to do things and whatnot.
Okay.
I really enjoy talking to you every week. Whether
Oh, I like talking to you too.
whether we continue the art check format or whether it evolves into something else. Scott is considering because we're probably gonna stop doing Monday. Um, I mean, when Josh and I first started it, our reasons for starting it have both gone away. We've either overcome the things that we wanted to overcome, or life changed because it was several years ago. Um, so we've been doing it for close to 3 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow. I didn't realize it had been that many years.
yeah, and we started the first 100 episodes or so. We were doing 3 times a week,
Wow.
and then we both kind of at that point were like, I can't remember when, but we were like, we both kind of. It's interesting how in sync we are in our things. We both thought this is a lot, but I don't want to disappoint the other guy. And then we both reached out about the same time and said, "Hey, let's cut back." And so we cut back to twice a week. And then when the pandemic hit, um, that changed his work situation, and so
Mm.
he needed to just focus on uh, making money to make up for lost income. So he cut back to once a week, which is where you and Mike kind of jumped in. Um, and so anyway, that's kind of the general overview. But similar thing happened. We were both kind of thinking, I think I want to change this up. I think I want and anyway, so he's got this idea of doing kind of a review of inspiration. So like
Mhm.
the people on the show, which wouldn't just be us, would be other people we bring on or whatever, but we would kind of go through and do reviews of art, comics, and movies and TV shows that have inspired us and are currently in our work. But we want to do a very like methodical approach to it, so that it's a systemic conversation about, not systemic, but it's a systematized conversation, more like a rubric than it would be like oh, I liked it because it was cool. We're going to break down like different components of what made it work, and how we see those components carried on since then, and other people's work and our own work. And so that's coming about. And then at the same time, anyway, so that's a larger conversation for
Okay.
to just kind of think about. But I still like this format, or I still like this group of people, you and Scott and Josh and everybody. I'm a little burnt out on the format.
I understand. Whatever you want to do.
So anyway, so just we can still do stuff. We can do stuff less frequently, or once a month, or every other week, or every week, with different formats or whatever. But sometimes, like this week and last week, and we'll probably talk about this during the challenges segment, but I've gotten very little done because the world's ending. Enemies both foreign and domestic, and it's been nuts. And as anybody who tries to be creative can test, it is exceptionally difficult to do that under huge amounts of stress. And so with everything going on, it's just, and maybe that can be our topic for a couple minutes. But so anyway, so I like the idea of things that keep people productive consistently and in a healthy way. But I personally feel like I have grown out of the need to have an art check every 48 hours. And that's kind of evolved. When we first started it, I really did. I mean, I was doing kind of the spike and crash situation where I was working frantically for a couple of days and not sleeping, and then I would crash, and I'd not do anything for 3 or 4 days, and then I'd do 2 or 3 days of just insane productivity. And then so it was this ups and downs that was kind of a holdover from getting a master's degree, where I had to kind of just pedal to the metal and ignore myself and ignore the things that you shouldn't ignore for too long. And then moving that into Jim says that Josh is such a diva. Yeah, and Jim Lujan is another one. He and I started 2 shows since then, and they don't have a schedule, but I've been really enjoying a more free-flowing format with that, and things like that. But anyway, I used to have this unhealthy productivity that wasn't beneficial to what I wanted to get done, and it wasn't healthy because I think in your 20s you can sleep erratically and it's absolutely not. But, I was approaching 40, and now I'm in my 40s, and if I pull an all-nighter, I pay for it for a week, whereas I could bounce back in a day 20 years ago. So anyway, all of those.
Yeah, you've got other stuff going on too, but we won't go into that. But
right. Yeah, and now, other than the last week and a half, I pretty consistently work a couple hours every day.
Oh, that's great.
On the stuff that I need to do. And so the original driving factor for having the 48-hour art check in my own personal life has kind of disappeared. But I still like, but a new thing has cropped up. What I didn't realize is I was kind of in a desert of other creatives, of other artists. Geographically, I'm not near people that I can socialize with that get what we're talking about. And so conversation with you and Jim and Scott and Josh and Mike and others who have kind of jumped on with us has become my kind of artistic social network of friends. So I still want to do that. I just don't know if I want to continue the same format. And I'm not exactly sure how interesting from a content standpoint the 48-hour art check portion of it is. I think the rest of it is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll and I don't know if I should share this or not, but I've been worried for the last while if, how do I say this, that I'm boring, that I'm just boring people, that I just don't have enough to say and I don't have enough to talk about, and I've been worried that, but yeah, if you want to, whatever you want to do to change things up or whatever.
Well, Jim says we're great together, so I don't think you're boring.
Oh, thank you.
And actually, I've heard many people comment about how they really enjoy having you on the show. So,
oh well, that's nice. Oh, that makes.
I should be a better person and pass those comments on when I hear that.
I appreciate that. I do.
But yeah, I think so I don't know, and it's not like, I mean, we work for ourselves. We're not under any deadline to make any decision anytime soon or whatever.
I think the one word that you said that I think would be really a good idea is, you said something about inspiration. And one of the things that I am finding is that I keep forcing myself to, first of all, I am self-employed and I am trying to, and if I wanted to, which I don't, I could just market all the time. Market. Write newsletters and write and work on social media. And I'm already on several different art leagues. And because frequently, and I volunteer. I absolutely volunteer because it's what I did for so many years. But when these different art leagues find out I'm a graphic artist, they're like, oh, goody. And they use me for publicity. They use me for different. And then when I shared that I was my degree was actually in motion media design, so they know I can do video and animation, they're like, oh, goody. So in fact, I just yesterday, they said, oh, well, we're going to do, since we can't do an actual, and this is right after I had finished doing a postcard, and I won't go into it. It was designed by committee. So I was change the name, change the date, change this, change that. And it was unfortunate. And by the time I went downstairs and started telling my husband how frustrated I was, and I ended up eating half a bag of popcorn out of frustration. And I try really hard not to frustrate, to emotion eat, but I do emotion eat. And I was like, and I said, and the only difference is this is just like when I was working, only I can't talk to anybody about it. And then Brian just raised his hand and said, you're talking to me. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry about that. But where was I going with this? Oh, but people found out that I could do video and animation, and they said, oh, we're going to do a film, since we can't have an opening reception of our show. What we're going to do is we're going to film it instead, just film the pieces. And then after they film it, could you edit it and create an opening and an ending and add some music? And when they asked me, I thought maybe I would say, not on your life. I've got work to do on my own. But what I did say, and I meant it sincerely, I said it would be my pleasure, because I get to do that stuff that I haven't done in a while. So, but because I'm doing all that other stuff, I'm not doing my own work. But one of the things that I find is when I do get time to do my own work, I can't do it. And one of the things, and I've shared with you, and I will share, as my husband and I are going to be moving in the next several months, and I'm going through stuff, and I'm going through old art books. And one of the things I'm finding is as I go through old art books, I look at things, and a lot of them are the old Disney concept books, like the concept books for the different Disney films or the Pixar films. And I look and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. And that gets me all excited. And then all I want to do is grab the nearest sketchbook and grab a pencil and start working again. And so talking about inspiration, what inspires you? What gets that fire underneath you again? Because whenever I try to force myself to work, it doesn't work. But when I look at other people's work, I get all excited. Like if I look at Aaron Blaze's work, and I actually am a huge fan of his work, and I actually am like one of those members where I can basically any of the classes. You can get you can buy the whole suite of all of his classes and basically just take anything. Mm-hmm. And whenever I get really feeling frustrated, I go on his website and start taking a class with him. And so talking about inspiration, I could get excited about that. And so that's something I'd be willing to look into more. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, I don't know where we're going with any of this nowadays. So, yeah, I agree. I think I think it's one of those things that is consistent. And one thing that I teach, is inspiration isn't it's not a singular event. It's something that you should seek out continually, because in the times that we don't, and we're still trying to draw from that well of creativity, that bucket can hit dry ground when you send it down too often without adding something. And and we've got sticky art in the chats. How's it going? And we've got
sticky art.
Frank and Jim. Frank's asking if we finally got rid of Josh. Josh and I are doing we're going to do some different stuff. So we're shaping up, and I don't know, we don't have a launch date yet, but we're trying to come up with a format and things like that. But
I have Josh's book sitting in my bookcase right over here, and I'm looking at it a little bit at a time. It's wonderful, but
brutal.
It's brutal. It is. It's brutal. It's wonderful. I recommend it. It is brutal. So, with the week we've had, the last 2 weeks, not everybody knows I live in the DC area. So, living at ground zero makes it even more scary. So, I can only take so much, but it's wonderful. So, just thought I'd share that. But
I agree.
Anyway,
I got it as well. So that's kind of a lot of the stuff I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks, is just kind of switching things up and figuring out where we want to go. And the most important thing is that we're making these shows because we enjoy it. And if at any point in time it becomes something that we don't enjoy, then we need to change it or stop it or do something else, because we don't we're not beholden to this.
We don't have to do this.
Yeah. So anyway, but I enjoy it. And so I don't know, let's do a quick rundown, art check. And just know that anybody watching that, we'll probably switch this up and do some other things and change things and see how that goes and whatnot. But as far as progress goes, since the last art check, I have been working with Jim on an animation, and I've got a number of scenes done and a lot of that stuff. But the most exciting thing that I've finished or started, I think, is better. And I'll just show this, though this is the worst way to show it. I've been writing again, and so I have the basic, the beginnings of the next short story that I'll do as a comic book that goes along with my From Hell's Heart. And so
Wow. Now, was that a concept, or is that what you just showed? Was that a treatment, or?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily work in a fluid way with writing. I don't. I'm very untrained as a writer, and so usually what will happen with me is I will sketch out various ideas of what I want the story to do, and then the main characters I want to know. I want to know what they love, what they hate, what they want, and what they fear. And then ultimately, I make them face what they fear to get what they want, that type of thing. And there was a character in the original short story who is the villain, and I realized that I didn't know why. I didn't know what was motivating him to do what he was doing, and it didn't matter for that story. It was a 4-page short, and it was a really just kind of a vignette of this event. And so this was a conversation between Ahab and Ishmael, because the characters are from Moby Dick. And so what I was writing is I will often just put two characters in a room and have them have a conversation so that I can understand them. And so ultimately, the first short mini comic was from Ishmael's perspective. He's on a Zaratan, which is a large sea tortoise that's as big as an island. I mean, there's a pub on the Zaratan, and he's telling he's telling his story and what had happened. So if you go to my website, you can read this first mini comic for free.
Cool.
But anyway, he is telling the story about how Ahab raised him from the dead, and raised the Pequod from the dead, and also has been bringing back all of these mythological creatures. So he has a Lilithu, he has a satyr, he's got some werewolves, he's got a pod of mermaid Wiccan pod.
That is so cool.
And then they are heading from Antarctica, where they have captured a narwhal, and they cursed some lodestone and covered the narwhal in this cursed lodestone, and they're driving the narwhal to the Devil's Triangle.
Poor narwhal, but I love narwhals.
I love narwhals too. I learned a ton about narwhals as I was doing this comic, but they drove the narwhal to the Bermuda Triangle with the cursed lodestone and the magic that comes with the narwhal to reverse the polarity of the magnetic poles in the Bermuda Triangle. That's
a lot. That's a lot.
Right. So that's the first 4 pages.
Oh my God. I mean, that's a lot. I can't wait to experience this, read this, watch this, whatever it's going to be. This is amazing.
So it's a comic. And so the next one.
I can't wait. This is exciting.
It'll take you 5 minutes. It takes me longer to explain it than it actually takes to read it. But what I just wrote is Ahab explaining what's going on to Ishmael. So Ishmael confronts him. And what happened in this version, I don't know if this is going to stick, but this is the first strike of inspiration I've had for a couple of weeks because of everything that's going on. Basically, Ahab is explaining that, the generalized concept of heaven and hell isn't as accurate as the ancient concept of personification of ideas. So deities that represent storms and feelings and thoughts and things. Aphrodite is love and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So what happened is Ahab tries to kill Moby Dick, the white whale, and is dragged down to his death. And what he's explaining is he said everybody thought I had lost my mind because I had become obsessed with killing this whale who took my leg. When I started describing him as having supernatural powers, and he said I called him a demon, and where I was mistaken is he's the devil. He's not actually a demon. He's the devil in whale form, and he dragged me down, and I am now the personification of revenge. So I'm no
Oh my
longer.
gosh.
And so he's coming back. His motivation is, as more people seek revenge in the world, he grows in power. Because
Oh, this is so cool.
so he's become revenge. And so it's like a Greek god. Ahab is the anthropomorphized version of revenge. And so what he's doing is he is taking the Pequod with his crew of kind of evil mythical creatures, and they are releasing titans, and they're doing these different things along the ley lines of the globe that just wreak havoc, so that there is havoc, and then people will seek revenge so that he grows in power.
Wow.
And so all of that is to say,
Are you sure this isn't really happening?
right, I hope not. If I just want to be, I say often that I hope I'm wrong in my art. But this one feels a little bit more fantastic. But yeah, if there are people out there that are wreaking havoc because they feed on chaos, that would make a lot of sense.
There are so many themes that you're. Oh, this is so cool. I'm just. I can just. I'm thinking of all these themes. I'm thinking of Faust and all the seven deadly sins, and I'm thinking there's another one. Oh, that's funny.
Jim often describes me as the craziest sane man that he's ever met.
I love it.
That works.
I love it. That's brilliant.
Really
well, creative people are often just on the edge,
Right. Yeah. Well, I've heard. I can't remember who said this, but it's be boring in your life so that you can be crazy on the page, or something along those lines.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I need to find that so I can add it to my quotes. I'm running dry on quotes for my Instagram page, and that's one of the things that I do. I go quote painting, quote art, and every once in a while I realize, oh God, I need to find some more quotes. But anyway, be boring so you can. I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm hearing a lot of like the Joseph Campbell archetypes. I'm hearing that. I'm hearing a little bit of Faust. I'm hearing a little bit of what are some of the other things that this is brilliant. I love it. I cannot wait to. It's imaginative, and it's scary, and it's and I'm going to have to read the whole thing because I want everything to turn out okay.
Yeah. And I think it will be somewhat of a Hellboy situation where there's just stuff that happens and they try to stop stuff as it happens.
I have actually never read Hellboy, nor have I ever watched any of the Hellboy movies.
The first,
and you would think that I would, but there are certain things that you would think I would be into, but I'm not.
Yeah, the first two Hellboy movies are great. The second one that was done by I'm blanking on his name, Del Toro, just phenomenal. I mean,
Benicio del Toro, the actor. Does he play Hellboy instead of what is it?
It's not. Am I saying the wrong name? Hellboy director. Golden Army director Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know that director too, but I didn't think he directed. I thought he was strictly an actor, and he's a great actor. Yeah. He's scary we're not allowed to swear on this show, are we? So he's scary as shit. So just but he's a brilliant actor. So
he's anyway, he's incredible. It's a great show, but I've really enjoyed. I've got the first couple volumes of Mignola's short stories, and he would just tell these little short stories, and it's just like Hellboy gets sent down to Mexico and meets up with a bunch of luchadors and starts fighting a bunch of vampires, and it's done in 6 pages. And then, the next short story is somewhere else. And the format is really interesting to me. And so I don't have the interest to commit to a multi-year long project, which is what, hundreds of pages of comic books would be. And so what I've decided to do is instead of saying I'm going to do a graphic novel for the stories, I'm just, every time I feel like it, I'm just going to come out with 3 to 12 pages, in a story, and work on it for a month or two.
Basically, comic book short stories, or I don't know what you want to call them. You've invented a new art form.
No, lots of people have been doing it before me, but
really? It shows you how much I know.
But but I mean, that's kind of the thing, and so now what I've got to figure out is I don't know if I want to make Ishmael the main character, or the main protagonist at least, or whatever, or if there's kind of a loose faction that's fighting Ahab or what, I don't know, but I do think the idea of Ishmael, I've always been fascinated by that book, Moby Dick, and Ishmael is not a sailor the way that Stubbs or Queequeg or anybody else is a sailor. He's a man he's a fish out of water wherever he goes. He doesn't really fit into the gentleman's society, and he doesn't really fit in with the sailors. He's very learned, and he's articulate and well read. And he's a storyteller, but if he spends too much time on land, then he feels like he wants to knock people's hats off in the streets, and that's when he feels like he needs to go take to the sea. But out there, he's much more of an observer of these people that are not like him. And so the interesting thing to me about his character in this world that I'm building is he could be, the idiot. In every sci-fi, every fantasy, there's always a person that shows up that people need to explain things to them because they don't get it. Luke doesn't understand the Force, and that gives Yoda and Obi-Wan the narrative excuse to explain what the Force is to the audience by telling Luke what it is, because he doesn't know what it is. Neo has no idea what's going on with the Matrix, and so that gives Morpheus the narrative excuse to tell the audience what's going on with the Matrix. So he could be that, but I actually think it'd be more interesting if he is forced to move into a position where he's not a casual observer documenting everything and has to take action, because in all of Moby Dick, he is watching and describing what's going on, and he participates, but he follows orders, and he does what he's told, and he goes with the crowd, and he happens to just get on the Pequod because that was the first ship that was really available to get on, and he happens to spend the night in the same room as Queequeg because there wasn't enough. I mean, it was all very things happening to him, and so I think it could be interesting to see him reluctantly realize that he's the only one that understands Ahab before he turned into the personification and has to take action on his own. That could be kind of fascinating too. So I've got to figure out the storytelling.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Joseph Campbell? Do you like to read?
Yes, a fan and a critic.
And a critic. I'm trying to think. He's got
Hero of a Thousand Faces.
Hero with a Thousand Faces, but there's another book that actually references him. Hold on.
So while you're looking for that, with him, I think he's.
Are you familiar with this book?
No.
It talks a lot about archetypes. And it explains how you can have an archetype who starts out as one and then ends up being another. And like in your case, I mean, you're talking about Luke, and Luke was the guy that had to have things explained to, and that was how they explained it to. But he was also the hero, and he was also the one who was going on a quest. He basically ends up going on a quest.
Right.
Oh, The Power of Myth. Isn't that Joseph Campbell too, Gary?
I believe it is. Yeah.
I need to find this other book. It's right here. I'll be right back.
Okay. So while she's looking for that, I have a love-hate relationship with Campbell because I like him. I think he's described things that are true, but I also rebel against formulaic anything. I don't like things that are formulaic, and the hero's journey has become somewhat of an equation. It's the same problem with like Save the Cat, which literally tells you like what page of the script should have the turn from act 1 to act 2, or whatever. It's like not all stories fit in that format.
And of course, I can't find it. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'll find it, but it's another book about archetypes, and it's really wonderful and really helpful. And I also find it inspiring. But Stealing Fire from the Gods, you might want to see if you can get a copy of that. It would be helpful for you and inspiring for you, and it helps me. I'm still trying to build characters for my own little effort, but certainly not as developed as yours is.
Well, I mean, I have already done a story in it, so I had to do all this work, and I'm just building on that. Gary says, yeah, that PBF is with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers.
I will have to look for it. Yeah. There have been a couple of lectures that are available on audible.com that talk about the same. It talks about Joseph Campbell, but it's not. I've forgotten the guy's name. I'll have to find it. But
have you read Invisible Ink by Brian McDonald?
No, that sounds cool.
Oh, you've got to read that.
All right.
He is so good. He's written several books, Invisible Ink and The Golden Theme, and he lectures on storytelling. And anyway, his breakdown of story is so simple and so powerful. It's incredible. I mean, basically,
that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, he goes through and he just says, the hero's journey is fairly complex. There's the call to action, the rejection of the call,
right.
All those different steps. Brian McDonald breaks it down as every day, and you fill in the blank, until one day, blank, and then because of that, and because of that, and because of that, and then every day after that, blank. It's basically the idea of normal, disruption, series of dominoes because of that disruption, change, and then new normal. And he is one of the most clear teachers I've ever read on story. It's
I need to write it down. Invisible Ink.
And he has a podcast called You Are a Storyteller, I believe. He's also done several interviews on the Paper Wings podcast with Chris Oatley and Laura Ennis, and just so good.
I will have to look all of those up, because things like that inspire me so much.
Yeah. And Gary and I are on the same page here. He says, I'm a great admirer of Campbell and of a lot of his books, though for sure his work made a bunch of creative writing stories.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I worry about. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, I agree. I wish I could remember the name of that other guy, but I'll think of it.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's lots of interesting things out there, but I monopolized the entire conversation just talking about my story. But anyway, if anybody's interested in reading that, You can go check that out at CoreyCurr.com. I'll post a link or something to the actual comic. But
I am.
What have you gotten done in the last little bit?
Other than having an mini nervous breakdowns all for the last couple of weeks watching the news. What I wanted to do was get back to a little bit of basics. A couple things happened. One, I'm entering a show or a competition that is a black and white competition. So I did a little watercolor, but it was all black and white. So it was just basically mostly Payne's gray, actually. But it made me remember how I used to just love to draw everything just in pen and ink. No other, just a pen, and create lots of shades and lots of basically I did pointillism and cross hatching and I've started doing a bunch of that, but and I've started, sort of trying to get it down to basics, just having some paper and a pen. And when I used to do that, I used to be able to look at a photo, and I think I've lost that skill. And I don't even know if it's a skill, because if you just copy a photo, it's not really, I don't know what you call it. I'm a Xerox machine, but I wouldn't even have to do pencil sketches ahead of time. I could just take the pen, start in the middle of the photo and draw it and go I usually went from the inside out. And it was very satisfying. And then what would happen is the texture of the paper, the pen would sort of, I would start to build textures on the paper and that would sort of change the way the drawing looked. And I started doing a little bit of that. But what inspired me was doing this. I did this one minimalist painting of a wolf. I don't know how to share it. Let me see if I've got a JPEG and I can throw it on. I've named it Luca. And it's a lot of...
we almost named Maddox Luca.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it seemed like a good name see if I can just drag it onto... How do I do this? How do I show it? Do I put it in the chat?
Share screen at the bottom.
Oh, I can do that if I can share screen. If it'll work. Let's see if it'll work. The last time I tried to share a screen, it didn't work so well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't.
Oh, there it is. There's Luca. Boom.
There we go. And then I'll add that. There we go. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Luca. And it's just really a lot of lost and found edges, and it made me very happy. And Luca looks terrified, but then that's sort of how I'm feeling right now. So
yeah.
But I like it, and I'm going to probably submit it. And I thought I'd do you can see all the different, there's a whole bunch of versions on the right there. You can see that I did several versions of it, but that's the final. And I'm pretty happy with it. But it's, I like the fact that ordinarily I want to, add more details to it. But the fact that it looks a little unfinished, but I like it that way. I like it sort of unfinished. And I'm going to do more like that. I'm going to do more just black and white. I'm going to do some pen and ink and some black and white watercolor, and just get back down to basics, because I'm finding that I'm getting caught up in, as much as I love color, and I do, I'm getting caught up in getting colors right, and I'm forgetting what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
no,
when I did a lot more black and white work, and I thought maybe going back to black and white for a while would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I love the ink wash style that you're doing there.
I do too.
I just feel like many people of all skill levels and experiences can get lost in color, because value is so much more important in my book than hue.
In some ways, I guess this would be considered a value study before a painting, but I kind of like it the way it is.
Yeah, And I mean, for my work, I mean, I'll share a page from that story I was talking about.
Let me unshare my screen.
Oh, it's fine. I got it.
Okay.
But like I mostly, when I do this type of stuff,
I love the turtle. Well, you know how I am about animals, but I
yeah.
love the turtle. Oh, that's
Well,
fantastic.
that's my Zaratan pub, so you can see the
Oh, I love it.
pub there, and then there's the crew.
Oh, this is so fantastic, Corey. I love it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my mermaids are not hypersexualized, attractive females. They're just fish people.
Thank you. As a
but,
woman in the 21st century, I want to say thank you.
Yeah, there you go. And then we've got all kinds of walks of life of different sea creatures and whatnot. But anyway, I love value and just black and white. And
there's your narwhal.
There's my narwhal being armed with the cursed lodestone from the mermaid Wiccan pod.
Now, what kind of pens do you use, or is that digital?
No, these are 11 by 17 inked pages. I typically will use mostly I'll use a Kuretake brush pen. I like the Kuretake Red Barrel. Occasionally, if I'm going for a little bit more of a dry brush line, I'll use the Pentel Pocket Brush because it doesn't have as good of an ink flow.
I'm
and so
with both of those, yes.
Yeah, and then it breaks up a little bit. And then very occasionally I will switch over to a very fine line micron drafting pen or sometimes a nib, but I've kind of moved away from kind of the crow quill nibs.
I was never, even though I love the way they look when other people use them, I was never really good with them. I always ended up spilling ink all over my page.
Yeah, and I've never had that problem as much as I just. And this probably isn't a good quality, but because I prefer what I can get out of a nib versus what I can get out of a micron. But I'm lazy and I just don't want to dip my pen every couple seconds.
Or you're many things. You ain't lazy. But.
No, I'm inventively lazy. My lazy drives my creativity because I often come up with very interesting solutions. And then I was stealing from Joelle Jones, who as of late has been drawing Catwoman, but prior to that was drawing an indie book called Lady Killer that was just mind blowing. And I actually have a page in the back here from Lady Killer, another page of hers where she did a horror comic about Viking zombies called Drogers. Where two witches were fighting each other and kept raising the dead to build their armies. Anyway, she is a phenomenal draftsman. But in addition to that, she sprays ink on her drawings. So she'll get a toothbrush or different. She's got half a dozen different brushes that she's cut in different ways, and she just knocks them against her finger. And
yeah.
So I was kind of
cool. That's a cool technique. It's a little bit dangerous.
Yeah.
But but that's in some ways that's what makes it cool. I know this sounds strange, but
it's a bit terrifying.
Yeah, I first started working in pen and ink when I was when I first got out of college. I was a cartographer. I was a map maker, and I am that old. I was using pen and ink to do some of my maps. And we used Kohinoor technical pens. I don't know if you even know what those are, but I
know what technical pens are, but I don't recognize the brand name.
Well, you had to. I don't have one with me, but they had they have a little needle and a little well, and you basically they come in sizes quad 0, 3 0, 000, 000, 0, 1, 2, 3, and you'd had to keep replacing the needles and you had to keep cleaning them. And they could create the tiniest little dot of ink, just the tiniest. And I started doing pointillism work with those, and I still have the pens, but and they would get clogged up with ink, and you would use India ink for them. And then I started using liquid watercolor in them, and I would make pen and ink. Let's see if I can find one. Pen and ink pieces with that, but it was really tedious.
Yeah.
But really, let's see if I can find one.
There are some artists on Instagram that I follow that do these huge, massive murals, but they're using pointillism and cross hatching, and I mean they're using these tiny little pens, and they're much younger than I am, and I just keep thinking, I wonder how long your body's going to hold out with that technique. I hope you're stretching and exercising well, because pointillism, oh my gosh, that just kills my hands. That death grip that you've got to have, and it's just so hurts so bad. It's not as bad as colored pencils, but it's painful.
Oh no, it's worse. In my opinion, it's worse than colored pencils. Here, it's on my screen. One of my elephants.
Maybe you're more forgiving with your colored pencils, because I've only done a couple colored pencils, and that was it. Oh, that's amazing.
And see what I mean about I would just sort of create, and it tells you how long ago I did it, 2006. And I actually added some pencil later in, but it was mostly pen and ink, and that's just all little teeny tiny dots. And I used to do stuff like that all the time.
When you do this, are you like, is it like a meditative state that you slip into? Yeah.
Yes. It's like, if you've seen the movie, if you've seen Soul yet, it's like you get into a flow state.
Yeah.
And people used to look at my work. The original for this is hanging in Artists and Makers Gallery. And people would look at my work and say, "Are you insane?" But it's very much so. And it takes forever though, but I miss it, which is why I'm starting to do it again. But
that's incredible.
Anyway, but that was made with a rapidograph pen.
Yeah.
Rapidograph is what they were called.
Right. I've heard of the rapidograph. I've never used one.
Yeah.
But I've heard of them.
Anyway, but
and that's where I can confidently say that I am lazy, because I look at that and I can appreciate the amount of work and the incredible craftsmanship that it takes to do that, and think I will never attempt something at that size with that technique. But I would probably use that technique, on the page as part of something. And that's kind of what I like about ink is you can steal that, and mine will never look like yours, and yours will never look like mine.
Well, that's true.
And yet we can be using the same. It's the same value. It's all black, right? And yet the individuality of the artist really comes through, I feel like, in ink.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure there's not anything I don't want anybody to see. I don't think there is, but
I can take it off. Well, I wish we could keep talking. I've actually got a thing. I've got to run, go help my wife with something. But Kathy, where can we find more of your stuff?
I am at pendragonartstudios.com is the name of my company and the main name of my website. I'm also at KathyMooreWilson.com. I'm also at Kathy Moore Wilson on Instagram. And that's about it. Cool. Like I've said many times, I'm on Twitter, but I never use it. So
Yeah.
I'm mostly on there so I can look at other people's stuff. So
Yeah. You can find me at coreycrow.com. If you're interested in reading that short story I was talking about, the first one, that will lead to the convoluted, weird second story that I haven't figured out yet. That's if you just go there and click blog, you'll see it come up. And then if you want to find me anywhere else, you can go to coreycrow.com/online, and that will give you links to my YouTube and my Facebook and my animations and all that jazz. So stick around, subscribe, follow us on different places so that you can know what all of this is going to morph into when it morphs into something. But we'll still be here in some format or another. Have a good weekend.
bye.